everyone. Welcome to Your Money Map, sponsored by the Alliance for Lifetime Income. I'm your host, Jean Chatzky. Very glad to have you with me today. In 1935, on August 14th of 1935, to be exact, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act into law. That means that we are just up against the 88th birthday of Social Security. And one of the things he said as he signed Social Security into law was this. He said, "Today, a hope of many years standing is in large part fulfilled. We have tried to frame a law which will give some measure of protection to the average citizen and to his family against the loss of a job and against poverty-ridden old age. Some measure of protection against poverty-ridden old age." Well, flash forward, and Social Security is one of the few sources of protected income that we all have. Millions of Americans and their families rely on it every single year. But are we getting from it what we should be? Are we taking the right steps when it comes to planning for our Social Security decisions? Are we working our financial lives around Social Security so that we can, in fact, enjoy that second part of our life? We're going to answer all of these questions today. We're going to do it with two incredible Social Security experts. And as we do it, I invite all of you to be part of this conversation. I know you've got Social Security questions. Everybody has Social Security questions. There are no better people than my guests today to answer them. So let me bring them in and introduce them to you. Jason Fichtner is Vice President and Chief Economist at the Bipartisan Policy Center. His research there focuses on Social Security, federal tax policy, federal budget policy, retirement security, and many other things. He is also a senior fellow with the Alliance for Lifetime Income and the Retirement Income Institute. And Marcia Mantell has, for 30 years, helped the country's foremost financial services firms and advisors increase their knowledge of retirement concepts and regulations and make them tangible. She is considered a retirement industry go-to person for Social Security and Medicare information. She is definitely that person for me. And her most recent book is What's the Deal with Social Security for Women? We're going to talk about why this is a women's issue, among other things. Welcome back to Your Money Map, both of you.
Thanks, Jean.
So as I said, I really do not believe that there is a single topic that interests this audience more than Social Security. So I'm very excited to be able to discuss it with both of you. Well, let me just start by putting something out there that I know many people believe that is perhaps not true, but that colors the way that we think and behave around Social Security. And that is the belief that Social Security is going broke or Social Security is going bankrupt. Jason, what do you say?
So, Gina, I'm glad you brought that up first, because that is one of the biggest narratives that I've been fighting for the last 2 decades. Social Security does face financial challenges, but it does not mean it's going bankrupt or going broke. So Social Security gets most of its revenues from payroll taxes that we pay on our income as wage employees. We pay some, the employer pays some, but it gets credit to your work. And the trust funds, which would, for one point in time, we had surpluses where payroll taxes were greater than the amount of benefits we were paying, and those were invested in treasury bonds. Those treasury bonds are now being used to make up the shortfall that payroll taxes don't cover for benefits. The trust funds are scheduled to be depleted. The trust funds themselves empty. For the retirement account in 2033, if you think about the retirement and disability together, it's 2034. At that point, Social Security has no borrowing authority. So it can only pay out in benefits what it gets in revenues, basically payroll taxes. And if Congress does nothing over the next 10 years, then that means that Social Security forward, about 25%. And that in some way to make the program solvent, if we don't do anything on the revenue side, benefits will have to be decreased by 25%. That does not mean bankrupt. It means you get 75% of your benefits. It's a whole lot better than zero. That's if Congress does.
If Congress does nothing, what do you think the chances are that Congress does nothing, Marcia?
Well, I am either Pollyanna or just very confident, despite the noise in Congress, they will do something. They just won't do it on our timetable. I mean, ideally, we would have liked some fixes to go in 10 or 15 years ago, where it wouldn't be quite so painful, but it didn't happen then. It's not going to happen now in upcoming election season. My guess is if we're scheduled to run out in 2033, 2034, Congress will take action the year after. And that's the same thing they did back in the 1980s. You know, we've seen this story play out before. In 1982, you know, all the rage, the sky is falling, Social Security is bankrupt. Like Jason said, it's not bankrupt. The reserve fund ran out. And then we had the 1983 amendments. So I think Congress will do the same type of timetable.
Jason,
Well, the concern there, and I think Marcia's right. The concern there, if you look at what we've been doing lately, Congress, when it comes to debt ceiling brinkmanship, they wait until the last moment to make a deal. Pass a budget, doesn't happen on time. There's continuing resolutions or government shutdowns. I, like Marcia, expect them to take Social Security to the brink, but I think they'll wait till just before the checks stop going out, or they go out and reduce form to do something. The problem is the options 10 years from now are a lot worse than the options are today. And they're even worse than they were 10 years ago. We've been delaying making changes, to Marcia's point. So that if you're thinking about, we use basically what they call a 75-year solvency horizon. So we try to make the program solvent for 75 years going forward. If we wait 10 more years to do this, we do it just on the tax side. So we're not going to touch anyone's benefit levels. We just want to do the tax side. We'd have to raise the current 12.4 percentage point payroll tax to about 16.5%, basically over a 4 percentage point increase to make the math work. If we had done this 10 years ago, we could have just lifted the Social Security taxable maximum amount without changing the rate, and that would have solved the 75-year solvency over a 7-year period. So the longer you wait, the greater the challenge is, and the impact's going to be on most people.
So I don't have a crystal ball. I also don't have a DeLorean, right? That's going to take me back in time. What do we think it is going to look like when Congress finally does act? Will it be something on the payroll tax side? Will it be something on the recipient side? When you look at the people who are going to suffer most from these changes, what does that look like? And Jason, let me stay with you.
So I'll be quick so Marcia can get in, but when we, as finance people, talk to people about retirement, think about market risk, think about inflation risk, think about sequence of return risk. Now we've got to start talking about political risk. Who's going to be in the White House in 2034? Who's going to control Congress in 2034? Is it going to be, a split party? Is it going to be one party? Is it Democrats, Republicans? That changes sort of the nature of what potential outcome might look like for Social Security if we get to that point where checks are going to be reduced and the trust funds are depleted. And I think what's going to have to happen for anything to be done on a bipartisan basis. So you're assuming that there is at least some split control. You'll need some votes in the Senate on both parties to get this through. That there's going to be changes on both the revenue side, so more taxes, but also changes in the benefit side. And that probably means we hold those who are most vulnerable, harmless as much as possible. That means middle income earners are the ones who are going to probably feel the biggest burden overall, either on the tax side or the benefit side. Their benefits could be taxed. They could see a reduction. Retirement age may increase. And when you think about the retirement age, it's important to point out, because Marcia mentioned the 83 reforms, we are still now finishing up today an increase in the retirement age that we set in place in 1983. So I think you're going to see a combination that's important for people to think about their retirement, because they're going to have to make up that difference if there is a benefit change.
Yeah, you guys know. Go ahead, Marcia.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything from your point of view, Jason, and I subscribe to almost all of that. I really hesitate to want people to think the retirement age is going to go up, because so many people cannot make it until 62. let alone to 65 or 67 and forget 70. But I'd also like to see something much more creative come out of a policy discussion group or somewhere in Washington that looks at retirement in new and different ways. I don't have brilliant ideas, but I'd love to sit in a brainstorming group to come up with that and not put so much pressure on our kids to have to pay 16% of their salary split between them and their employers, or, even think about cutting back benefits that were earned by us boomers and the oldest Gen Xers and the rest of the working population. So I want some more creativity built into the discussions.
For people who are listening to this and thinking, okay, if you're right, and based on recent history of how Congress has acted, it seems like you probably are right, that we are not going to take action. Our government is likely not to take action until it absolutely has to take action, until it's up against that deadline, until the checks go out, which is kind of terrifying, I have to say. If you're an individual and you are looking towards your own personal retirement, what do you need to do to prepare for the eventuality that you might get less? And as we talk through this, Marcia, let's talk about what you should be doing now, but also if you are up against the point where you could claim your full benefit or your initial benefit, do you take it because of the potential that it could get cut down the road?
Yeah, all really important considerations that each individual and each couple, whatever your household looks like, needs to take on. The first, maybe the most important question you asked, Jean, was, should you take your initial benefit, your age 62 benefit? And my answer is always absolutely not, unless there's really a reason. And some people have health issues, or they're the younger and lower earning spouse, and they can get as much benefit by, their husband or wife getting into the system. So there's certain combinations where age 62 might be reasonable, but it's probably for about, 8 or 10% of the population, not the 30% that take Social Security at 62 and the 2/3 who grab before their full retirement age. So I think the best thing we can all do is get smarter about the importance and what a big financial decision this really is into each of our retirement income streams. And I always look at it, I like food a lot, so always looking for a food analogy. So for me, Social Security is that bottom tier of a layer cake, right? If you don't have that bottom tier anchored on the plate and frosted well, the whole rest of the cake crumbles. You can't build and stack, that wedding cake. So you've got to be really smart about that bottom layer. It's got to be rigid and structured and know how much income it's delivering. Because what we don't see really in any meaningful ways is people who are worried about Social Security going bankrupt or running out of money, or they'll be cut short on their benefits. What we don't see is the action that we should be seeing, which is wild, rampant savings into 401ks and 403bs. We see steady savings, but we don't see people jumping from, 3 and 4% up to the 15% that the industry suggests. And we don't see enough movement. So not only do you have to invest better and save better, but you also have to choose products that replicate what Social Security would do, the guaranteed income products or the protected income products. And we need real people to think about the importance of that pension-like income. And we just don't see enough of that. We see some movement. We don't see it in waves of great tidal waves coming through of better savings habits. And that's going to be the ticket.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think if we could get our savings rate up in this country, that would be amazing, would go a long way to solving a lot of problems. I don't necessarily think we're going to solve that on this show or during this conversation, but maybe we can get people to think a little more logically about the claiming decision. Jason, when you say delay, why do you say delay, and how much should you delay in most situations?
So I echo Marcia's line exactly, which is you should not take Social Security retirement benefits until you need them. So you can claim anywhere between age 62 and 70. And unfortunately, we have current language we use, which sort of biases the debate. So for example, the age 62 benefit is called the early eligibility age. Who likes to be late, Gene, for getting money? No one likes to be late. They always want to be early, like getting in line early for a concert. What they don't realize is that age 62 is actually the minimum benefit age, while age 70 is the maximum benefit age. And the numbers make a difference. So for example, if your full retirement age is 67 and you were supposed to get $1,000 this year at age 67 for Social Security, if you were to claim instead at age 62, that $1,000 would be $700 a month, a 30% reduction in your monthly benefit that lasts for the rest of your life. Or if you could delay claiming to age 70, it'd be $1,240 a month, a 24% increase in monthly benefit. The difference between $700 at age 62 and $1,240 at age 70 is about a 77% difference. It's huge. And that is the last the rest of your life. So you basically, it's not linear, but you're getting almost an 8% annual increase in your monthly benefit for each year you can delay claiming. And that's why it's important. I mean, you mentioned we're not going to solve the savings problem on this show, but if we can get people to understand that by waiting just one more year to claim benefits, they can get an 8% greater monthly benefit that lasts for the rest of their life. That's a big improvement. So maybe try to think about how we can either delay claiming, working an extra few years, or to Marcia's point, if people can't work at 62, can we find some way to take what is their defined contribution employer-sponsored plan, take some of that asset and get a bridge annuity that gives them an age 62 benefit, but facilitates them to delay claiming a few years so they can get that Social Security benefit, which is again inflation protected, that'll be higher for the rest of their life. And I think that's why the claiming decision is so important.
That's an incredibly important point. People, I think, sometimes hear these conversations and they think, look, you're stretching out 8 years, and maybe I can't go 8 years, but maybe you can go 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. And the 8% bump in benefits that you get every single year, along with a cost of living increase that doesn't come in pretty much any other program, is incredibly valuable. And it can make sense to pull money out of your 401k or your IRA in order to bridge your living expenses, just to enable yourself to do that. But Marcia, it's complicated, and people often need advice on sort of the best claiming strategy. I turn to you for this kind of advice, but the scenario gets complicated, particularly for women, when we think about various life events and various family structures. When we think about whether there's a higher earning person in the family versus a lower earning person, when we think about age gaps between spouses, when we think about if you are divorced or if you're widowed, it all complicates the soup. Can you break it down a bit? I mean, Jason gave us the basic rule of thumb, which is delay if you can. But what about for these other scenarios?
Yeah, the decisions for women, I mean, on the books, they're the same as they are for men. I mean, there are no different rules anymore for women versus men. But our life story is different. And so for women, it's really understanding how the calculation works high level. And what I mean by that is it takes 35 highest years of your earnings to calculate your benefit. There's a whole bunch of other math behind there, but the key is knowing it's 35 years of earnings, of real earned income, and do you have them? So, for many of us women, we stepped out of careers when we had our children, when they're young and we're raising them, or when they're teenagers and you needed to supervise what was going on at home, or we step out later in careers to provide caregiving to our parents. So I call that the mom gap and the care gap. We literally have bunches of zeros on our statements. And if we don't have real earnings, those zeros go into the calculation and depress it or lower it. So many women start out with just a lower baseline number, whether we claim it full retirement age or even wait till 70, it's still a lower number. And the averages are something in the neighborhood of, on average, a man who had his career, an average worker, would get about $20,000 a year. A woman gets about $17,000 a year. I mean, just because our journey is so different. But if you know that, and if you know that, say by 50, you can make really good work decisions. Like, oh, I didn't really want to work until 67, but I see those 6 zeros when I was home with the kids. I guess I'm going to tack on 6 more years and make up for that. We don't know that. Like, that's one of the simplest decisions we can make, to understand that our career and our work history directly impacts how much income we'll get. The last piece is for the widows. For many women in America, they're married to very hardworking men who are in the trades. It's those people in the service sector. They rarely can, their bodies just cannot get all the way to full retirement age before they claim. But what happens is those men very often were the higher earner. They claim early, locking in, to Jason's point, like a 30% permanent reduced benefit. And then if the man dies first, leaving a widow, she gets the least amount of survivor benefits. So what happens when my husband is Dan, if Dan dies first, I get to step into his shoes and get the amount he was taking if it was higher than mine. Well, in a lot of marriages today, that's the equation. He made more, she made less. She will step into his shoes, and it's less. And this is the widow gap, that without knowing that he was locking her into the least amount of benefit that she could receive at her oldest age. That's what we women need to know, so we can make better decisions in our early 60s before we start pulling the trigger. And these decisions are pretty much irrevocable.
And I think that's the key thing also that Jean does to hammer home, to double down on Marcia, is that the filing, when you file, the age which you file can impact the spousal and survivor benefit. So if you're a married couple, you've got 2 lives to plan for retirement, not just one. And it's important to have those kitchen table conversations about finances and talking about Social Security as well.
Wendy asked a question. It's a good one. She said, your retirement age discussion seems like it's not taking life expectancy or longevity into account. What do the actuary tables predict for someone who gets sick and only lives a few years after collecting? And then to put this into perspective, she says, I'll be reaching retirement age when the government will be evaluating reserve issues. Lastly, as a sole proprietor nearing retirement age, am I eligible for catch-up contributions, and how can I take advantage of those to boost my retirement savings? Jason, in terms of the life expectancy issue, I think in addition to the fear that Social Security is going to not pay out as projected, that gets people claiming early, this is the fear that gets people claiming early. I've paid in for 40 years. I want to get my money before I die.
So if you have health issues, you know about it, right? You turn 62 and you know you've got terminal cancer, you got 2 years to live, take the benefits. I get it. We don't know when we're going to die mostly. Most of us have no idea. If we did, we'd probably change the way we do everything in our daily activities. Right now, about 1 out of every 3 65-year-olds today, 1 out of 3, will live until at least age 90. 1 out of 7 will live until age 95. We are seeing more and more live to 100. For women, that number is higher, right? Women tend to live longer than men right now. It's catching up because of the work history, but women tend to live longer. The reason why the claiming age is so important, and Marcia said this too, if you can delay claiming, then that monthly benefit is higher, and that's for the rest of your life, especially if you live longer in those higher years when you're probably going to need that extra income for healthcare or other expenses. So it locks in that higher rate for the rest of your life. So with longevity, I've always thought of Social Security as an insurance program, right? Technically, it's the OASI, Old Age Survivors Insurance Program. And there's a disability insurance program also. What are we trying to insure against? The whole idea was to ensure that you didn't outlive, that you basically had income in retirement and that if you didn't outlive your savings, you had something to replace it. And so it was never meant to be a retirement plan. It was meant to be an insurance for old age. And now people are trying to figure out how they can maximize sort of the overall lifetime income. That's not what it was intended to do. It was intended to replace only about 40% of your income on average. So it was never meant to be the sole source. But we have survey work that's done, the peer study with ALI that's done, that shows that 73% of people are counting on Social Security. So they're relying on it more, but don't realize it's only supposed to replace 40%. So for those of us who might live longer, and again, for people who have more blue, white collar type jobs, like sitting in an office like mine, I'm going to tend to live longer than somebody, to Marcia's point, who's out there hardworking and doing something in the field or manufacturing, and might have less longevity than I do. But you need to figure out what your odds are. Because again, if you think you're going to live longer, and most people don't realize, right now we're planning, when Social Security started, in 35, if you're 65, you likely live for a few years. Maybe you live 6-7 years on Social Security. Now, if you make it to 65, you might be living to 85 or 90 or 95. So you've got to figure out, do you have enough savings to last you 20 or 25 years? When you think about it in that context, a lot of people don't think they have enough money. So that higher monthly benefit will help you get through those later years. So it's important to think longevity. So this goes back to Marcia's point. If you need the money at 62 and you're sick, take it. If you don't, delay it. You can go into Social Security tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. They'll still be there for you.
Well, Marcia, I want you to weigh in on those catch-up contributions, but just put a pin in it for a second, because Jason, you said many important things, but one of the important things that you said there was Social Security replaces about 40% on average of the pre-retirement income of Americans, right? I think we hear that 40% and we think, oh, it's going to cover 40%, but we don't hear the average. So explain how that plays out in real life.
So Social Security is designed to be a progressive benefit formula, which basically means if you are a lifetime lower wage worker, so let's consider an hourly wage worker versus someone who's making 6 figures a year as the two examples, the binary example. Someone who's making hourly wage is considered a lower wage lifetime earner. They will get a higher replacement rate from Social Security, meaning they'll probably get up to 70 or 80% of their wages replaced on a monthly basis. If you are a higher income worker, you can get as low as like 30% or maybe a little less than your monthly benefit, because it's designed to be progressive. So they also assume that if you're a higher wage worker, you've had additional ability to save more money on your own. So there's a maximum Social Security amount you can get. And so this is where you start thinking about lower income workers who may or not be able to save on their own. They'll get a higher replacement rate, and Social Security may be enough for them. I still think people should save on their own regardless, but that may be enough. But do you want to count on it for everything? But we're talking about people who are making then over $35,000 a year. That's where it really starts dropping the replacement rate, and you've got to really start thinking about getting outside income, not just relying on Social Security.
Which brings us to the need for catch-up contributions. Wendy was asking, is she eligible to make them? My guess would be yes, she's a sole proprietor, whether she's contributing to an IRA or to a SEP or a solo 401k. Yes, right?
Yeah. Yes. If she is 50 and older, yes. And that's amazing and wonderful if you can maximize these plans that are available for you, and then have even enough more to put, I think the catch up, I didn't look up these numbers before I came on, Jean, but it's a lot. 65, it's an extra $1,000 in an IRA, and it's like an extra 6,500 or more
in a 401k. Yes.
So you can knock away a whole lot of money as a self-employed person if you've got the revenues to support it.
And Marcia, you may know this. I don't have it in front of me either, but I think the tax law changed. So if you're making over 128,000 in my head from last year, you have to put the catch up into a Roth. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's 145,000. Yeah. So if you're getting to be the highly comped earner, you have to put it into a Roth, but that's a great tax allocation strategy for retirement income. So it's just paying taxes up front, and then you'll have tax-free income in retirement later.
One of the things that I think people often forget about Social Security is that it's an annuity. It is, it's an annuity that everybody gets. It's a form of protected lifetime income. It is going to stay with you until you die. On this show, we talk a lot about annuities and the thought process that we should be going through as we close in on retirement about whether we want to add other streams of lifetime income to our portfolios. Jason, can you talk a little bit about why this is an important consideration?
The retirement landscape has changed over the last several decades. It used to be you went to work and your employer had a pension for you. So you got a paycheck for working, and when you retired, you got a paycheck from your pension. So you're used to getting a paycheck basically throughout your working life and your retirement life. You had a paycheck for life. And people got used to spending that paycheck. It's called a budget constraint. They got $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month. They knew what they could budget because they had that budget constraint with that income. Now we've shifted, and that defined benefit pension plans are basically going away. Most people don't have that anymore. They now have the defined contribution plan. These are the 401k, 403b plans we talk about so frequently. So now people are used to getting a paycheck during work. They save some money. They get to retirement age, and we say, bye-bye. Go on your own and figure it out. Have fun. And people are like, what happened to my paycheck? So now we have to help people take the retirement assets they built in their 401k plan, their defined contribution plan, and turn at least some of that into a paycheck. So that that paycheck with Social Security becomes now your income, your protected income in retirement, because Social Security is protected and annuity is protected. Now you have protected income, and the idea is with both together, you can replace that paycheck you got in work, so you have that paycheck you have in life, and you can keep your lifestyle, and you can budget accordingly. That's why this is so important for the conversation.
One of the things that's been fascinating to me to learn as I've gone through these conversations is that when you have that stream of protected income, rather than pulling money from your retirement account on an ongoing basis, it actually makes you feel, and there's research to show this, makes you feel more comfortable spending on a regular basis because you know that another check is going to come the next month. But I think one of the most basic problems, Marcia, is that we have no idea what's going to be there. We have no idea what's coming our way because we haven't signed into Social Security and taken a look. I actually got a nudge just today from the Social Security Administration to look at the new quote unquote statement, which I haven't done yet. But if you haven't gone through the process, when's the right time to start checking on your earnings record, to start looking at what you might be eligible for as you move through your career? And how do you do it?
Yeah, as early and as young as you are. So today is when you should start looking if you haven't already. Even if you are, I mean, I've got two kids, 27 and 32. They have my Social Security accounts. They go in and look at their statements, and they make sure that their record is correct. So you can do things when you're young, and then certainly by 50. And gosh knows our boomers, we need to be looking at that thing every year. But it's easy. It's online. You go to ssa.gov, which is the Social Security website. Make sure it's .gov, and you set up your My Social Security account. And in there, every year, as your wages are reported for tax season, you get an updated statement. So you get another year towards your 35 years of earnings. Will it be a highest year or not? You won't know till the end, but you can see your earnings history accumulating and the estimated benefit that you get. Your first benefit estimated once you have your 40 credits earned in Social Security. You work about 10 years. So it is right there almost on a silver platter for us. And not a lot of people know to go there. So I'm happy you brought that up, Jean, because your Social Security statement is probably your most important tool of all. This tells you what your estimate is. It lets you know what a dependent would get or a spouse would get, or if you become disabled. Jason mentioned earlier, we have a disability insurance program under Social Security as well. And you're much more as a young person likely to become disabled than to die. So you can, if you meet qualifications, there's some money there to help you keep a household running if you become disabled. So anyway, the statement is incredibly powerful. The earnings record, unfortunately, Social Security pulled it apart from the statement, but you can still get it. It's just a separate link. And take a look. How many years do you really have? And people are shocked at 50 or 52 to find out they don't have 35 years yet. It's like, oh, well, it feels like I've worked 35 years, but you haven't actually worked that long. So it helps you make really good decisions.
And Jason, if we have additional questions for Social Security, we've all heard about terribly long lines on the phone and waits to get an appointment. What's the best way? I ask you this as a former Social Security employee, right? What is the best way to deal with the Social Security Administration?
The first is they do have a lot of online resources and tools. So for those who are at least have internet connection or somewhat savvy, as Marcia said, go to ssa.gov. Again, gov, don't go to .com, go to ssa.gov. They have a lot of resources. I mean, and some of they're designed for you to be read by actual people. I mean, there's one that I'm going to show, but you can see it's Facebook, but it's when to start receiving retirement benefits. It's a double-sided one-pager. It walks you through some of the things we've talked about in this show today and what things to consider. There's links to talk about survivor benefits and spousal benefits and the importance of claiming and who to talk to. But you can call Social Security. There's an 800 number. There's probably going to be a wait. You can go to a field office for an applicant and make an appointment, which is also going to be a wait. You can talk to a financial advisor, which I think is important because Social Security claiming is one of the most important decisions you'll make. You think about having a kid, buying a house, getting married. Social Security is probably in the top 5. But try online first, then call, and then go into the field office if you need to, but try to do more things online or through telephone.
Fantastic. Great resources. Before we wrap this up, if people are looking for more information from both of you, where would you like them to go? Marcia?
I'd suggest you go to my blog, which is boomerretirementbriefs.com. And it is chock full of stories about boomers who are reinventing and redesigning retirement, and a whole bunch of stuff about Social Security, including some checklists for how you actually claim when it comes time based on, are you married, are you single, are you divorced, are you widowed?
Fantastic. And from you, Jason?
I would again suggest ssa.gov. I would also check for aarp.org. So AARP has a lot of good resources online, educational resources for seniors. You're going to probably plug protectedincome.org, which is the Alliance's website, but I'll make sure to mention that. And then if you're interested in like policy solutions, not like claiming decisions, but just what can we do for Social Security policy, like reform options, then come visit me at the Bipartisan Policy Center at bipartisan.org. That's our website. We have a lot of interesting things on policy solutions that you could find as well.
Yeah, you are right. I'm going to plug the Alliance's website. It is protectedincome.org. And for more information on this conversation specifically, protectedincome.org/Mantell-Fichtner. We'll put that up on the screen so that you can see it. Thank you so much for being here. As always, we appreciate you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Jean.
for having us, Jean.
All right. Bye, everybody.